Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the CleanTech Lithium PLC investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab that's just situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Please just simply type in your questions at any time and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, all questions submitted today will be reviewed, with responses published on the Investor Meet Company platform where it is appropriate to do so. Before we begin, I would like to submit the following poll, and if you could give that your kind attention, I'm sure the company would be most grateful. And I'd now like to hand you over to CEO Aldo Buitano. Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. We're very excited to tell you all the news and the updated news of CleanTech Lithium. I'm Aldo Buitano. I'm the CEO of CleanTech Lithium. I have a master's in engineering, a master's in business, and a doctoral degree obtained in the US. I developed 800 megawatts of various renewable energy projects, like this project, I developed from start to development to production other projects. With that said, I would like to introduce our chairman, Dr. Steve Kessler. Steve.
Good afternoon. I think this particular CleanTech Lithium project is a very exciting one. We have three very interesting salars in Chile, two of which we've proved contain lithium. Aldo will talk later today. We announced an upgraded resource on the Laguna Verde salar. Our intention is to use direct lithium extraction to extract the lithium from these salars. These have the advantage of greatly reducing the environmental impact. We won't have the large evaporation ponds, which you'll find elsewhere in Chile or Argentina. We won't have the open pit mines, which you'll find in Australia. We will extract the brine, extract the lithium from it, and return that brine back into the aquifer. We aim to use this using renewable energy and produce as close to zero emissions, close to zero carbon emissions as possible, which we believe will give us a critical advantage in the fast-growing EU market. You'll see when you compare, when you see our comparison of CleanTech Lithium to our peers in the market, we believe that for the size of resource, the technology we have, and our prospects in the future, we are greatly undervalued, and it's a very attractive entry point into the market. And we clearly see that in a very short space of time, there'll be a number of strategic partners who will be interested in coming into our project. We have a proven management team operating in the Chilean industry. I myself, my background has been 45 years in the mining industry with major mining companies, Rio Tinto, BHP, and a number of juniors. I've spent over 30 years working in the Chilean mining industry in various areas, including with Escondida as the first CEO of Collahuasi, which is the second largest copper mining project in the world. I've been CEO of lithium companies listed in Australia. My own background is technical. I have a PhD in hydrometallurgy. So Chile, lithium, and the technology made me very excited to come on board as the chairman of this company. We're seeing that the new Chilean government is very strongly supportive of the mining sector. It's recognized that over the last 30 years, the economy of Chile has grown tremendously because of mining investment, and it intends to see that that investment continue, and that will lead to further economic benefits into the country. Okay, Aldo, if you go into the project.
Yes, thank you. Well, this is a snapshot of our three projects. As Steve mentioned, the lithium demand is here to stay, and we are a lot more environmentally friendly from day one, from 2017, the way we envision our projects that are now coming closer to production. The three projects are, you can see at the bottom of the screen. They're starting the southern tip of the lithium triangle. That starts in Bolivia, goes all the way down to Argentina and Chile. It's Francisco Basin and Laguna Verde. The Laguna Verde is the more developed ones. This morning, we released an updated York resource from 1.2 to 1.51 million tons. That's a 22 increase resource. But the most important part is now that 53% of those resources are measured and indicated. It's 800,000 tons of lithium, and that gives us a projected more than 30 years of production at 20,000 tons per year. That's a very significant number, and once the scoping study is finished at the end of this year, and then we continue with the PFS, the pre-feasibility study, we'll see the project coming more and more closer to production. In Francisco Basin, we're going to be announcing in a couple of weeks. In October, we're going to be announcing another maiden resource. Our broker, Fox Davis, and their analyst have projected 600,000 tons per lithium. The number we're going to be producing, it'll be public, like I said, in October. But if you add their projections and what we announced today, we're close to 2 million tons of lithium, and that's a very important number. We're going to be upgrading Laguna Verde some more. Once we're reconditioning the holes, we drill on the past the drilling season, and then we're going to do more drilling there in Francisco Basin. We're going to talk about Yamará, a very large, significant project in the northern section of the lithium triangle. A little bit, not too much northwest, of the Salar de Atacama. And that will leave us, oops, sorry, the presentation just changed here. Where is it? Oh. That will leave us with a very greenfield project that we'd like to develop, and we'll be drilling at the beginning of the past the winter. Yamará can be accessed year-round. We have an experienced board and management team with experience that includes developing of major new mines in Chile. Steve developed the largest 2 copper mines of the world, Escondida first, and then as a CEO of Collahuasi. And like I said, myself too, with the renewable energy projects. The main thing on these basins, Laguna Verde and Francisco Basin, there's no competing lithium projects. We control the complete basin. There's no indigenous communities. Just the fact that we have the complete basin, that makes our company very rare, allow us for the full cycle of the direct lithium extraction process that we'll see further on the presentation, as we can re-inject without having a competing or a neighbor that is trying to do the same thing, and we just don't control all the variables on the basin. We're a registered company in Jersey. We have offices in London, Santiago, and Jersey. We raised in the pre-IPO and the IPO process. That the IPO happened right on the beginning of the Russian and Ukrainian, war, and we got listed, and we're well funded for continued growth. A board, I already mentioned some of the board, people with a lot of experience on publicly listed companies, and also a lot of important people on the field and our senior management. Marcelo Bravo and Pedro Torres are 2 of the top 5 world's experts on lithium. They're working at various stages with the company, and we're very happy of the team we have set up in Chile, various professionals that are addressing environmental, community, operations, direct lithium extraction, human resources, etc. A full company has been developed, and a team being developed since we got listed back in March of this year. Steve, you want to talk a little bit about the low emissions and the European market?
I think everybody knows the anticipated growth rate for lithium in the world over the next 10, 20 years. It's particularly the case in the EU. There's a whole slew of battery plants in production. The EU have been stressing the need to decarbonize their economies, particularly in motor vehicles. They're pressing the motor manufacturers to switch to electric. And the EU will see the fastest growth in lithium-ion battery demand in the world. They're projecting a 20 times increase over the course of the next 10 years. Now, not only does it want to have those lithium-ion batteries, it wants the battery manufacturers and car manufacturers to ensure that they have low carbon supply chains to make those batteries. So it wants to see low carbon lithium, nickel, cobalt into those supply chains. And clearly, when you look at the right-hand slide, if you look at the carbon dioxide emissions per ton of lithium from hard rock mining, from conventional brine production from evaporation ponds, our DLE using renewable with close to zero carbon dioxide emissions, we think that's going to give us a tremendous marketing advantage, particularly into the EU. And we believe that in time that will generate premium prices for CleanTech Lithium's green lithium production. Aldo?
Thank you, Steve. Yes. I mentioned at the beginning, like the resources that our broker is calculating and has put publicly on a report of 500,000 or 600,000 on the Francisco Basin, plus what we announced this morning, and again, we're very happy of the announced this morning with the upgraded resource. That will put us above China. If you see just to give you a sheer size of our projects. This is the global lithium reserves. Our numbers are not included in the Chile number. And just to give you an idea of what we're talking. Steve mentioned it at the beginning. We're a country who has been growing tremendously over the last 30 years. Mining has been key on this growth. There's an involvement of the Chilean engineering capacity on all projects, many projects of copper, the largest copper producer. And then, of course, gold, silver, and lithium. The government has been very open. Our projects have been portrayed by the government in gatherings and forums in Australia and Canada. A center-left government has an emphasis on reducing the environmental impact and reduce the CO2 emissions as low as possible. And they've been very open and positive to what we've been saying. We actually have regularly meetings. We have one this afternoon to socialize our process and our projects and receive the feedback from the government. That always been positive. We'll go some more in the direct lithium extraction, but again, this shows you at the bottom the impact of a large evaporation ponds in Salar de Atacama, and what low footprint of what we are working to do. So we'll get on to direct lithium extraction. This is a mechanical and chemical process. It means that you extract the brine from the subsurface aquifer. You do mainly with an absorption with a resin that once it's stripped of the brine, means that the brine, without any chemicals and without the lithium, can be reinjected back in the subsurface aquifers. Again, as we control the whole basin, we can control the hydrogeology variables, and we can re-inject in a place where there's the brine is very low in lithium, and then permeates back to the point of extraction out of the subsurface aquifer. The recovery rate of the direct lithium extraction is very high, 95. The overall recovery of the whole process, it's less than 95, but it's normally double from that of the traditional evaporation ponds. The point of moving the project from an idea into development, and we see a development in Argentina that is happening quite fast, is about just 5 months from the order from the supplier of the plant, EPC, hence Keystone delivery of the plant, and then only 9 months to 12 months into production. That's a lot less than a year of setting up the evaporation ponds, and then another year of the whole process. And the actually process of producing lithium, carbonate lithium or lithium hydroxide, is just a few hours with the direct lithium extraction plant. The part of the chemical to mechanical process has nanofiltering, has the absorption part of the resin, has reverse osmosis, forced evaporation, and then comes ionic exchange to reduce boron and other very complicated chemicals out of the brine to be able to create the battery-grade brine after the continuing processing. What we have done, we've completed the 1 kilo battery grade earlier this year, and we sampled and sent to international labs to confirm this sample of 1 kilo, and we met all the standards of battery grade lithium. We actually went farther than that. The requirement is 99.5 purity of the lithium, and we went to 99.9. Just recently, we signed an MOU with Sunresin. This is the world leader in commercial scale direct lithium extraction plants. Have 9 plants. The total capacity of those plants, 73,000 tons of lithium per year. We're working with on a pilot scale test work, both bringing a plant from their subsidiary in Belgium. They acquired two bulk producing companies in 2019 in Belgium, and at the same time running another pilot test work in their facilities in China with the latest brine samples from Francisco Basin and from Laguna Verde. An important part of Sunresin development, they pair with Hatch and working in North America and in South America, is that they deployed, like I said, in only 5 months from the purchase order and the MOU they signed with a lithium producer, future producer company in Argentina. In 5 months, they produced 134 containers, and all the parts you can see at the bottom right. That meant what is now being installed, a 25,000 tons per year plant in Argentina. They're also setting up a lab in Tasta in Salta in Argentina, and talking of setting up a pilot plant in northern Chile. This is a photo on the left side of direct lithium extraction in China. DLE is a proven technology. We receive from the market a lot of times the idea of conversations that this is yet unproven. Since 1998, Livent, formerly FCM in Argentina, is producing 20,000 tons per year of lithium. They don't have evaporation ponds. They just have a forced evaporation pond part of the process, and they've been producing with it a resin and absorption lithium. Sunresin has been since 2017 doing the same in 3 plants in China, and now installing a large producing plant in Argentina and in other places as well. You can see, and Steve mentioned, the low evaluation that we have. This is numbers of yesterday. $57 million is the valuation of the closing of the stock market yesterday. And you can see other companies that are also involved in direct lithium extraction space, and how they're valued and how they're perceived. We tickle all the boxes with the resin we develop, and Sunresin now working on the piloting and all the design of the plant itself. Our resource who's been upgraded this morning, and we have geothermal activity in Laguna Verde that we're going to see a little in a few minutes. The projects. That's a footprint of a 3 to 4 month drilling campaign in Laguna Verde. We drilled 4 holes. You can see that tiny little yellow cased top of the subsurface bore as the footprint of our project, and you can see the landscape. This is Laguna Verde, the farther more developed projects of the 3. Even though Francisco Basin is catching up, you can see the 4 wells, LBO1, LBO2, LBO3, LBO4, surrounding the basin. It's surrounded by volcanoes. We have the mining licenses. At the center is an option agreement where you act as an owner as long as you comply with all the option agreement requirements. And we've been doing that, and we don't have no doubt. And that's one of the reasons Chile has been successful on mining development. It's similar to Australia and to the US and other top mining jurisdiction, Canada, on how we operate everything from mining licenses, option agreements, etc. The current JORC compliant resource that we released this morning, again, it's 1.51 million tons of lithium. The important part is that 53% of that is measured and indicated. Again, this we expect to have a base case production of 20,000 tons per annum of this for more than 30 years. And we're going to keep on expanding the resource as we go back and reconditioning the holes and added more land that we've been acquiring with mining licenses. And also we drill when the drilling season starts, and we'll have those results, some at the end of this year and some on the next year. I mentioned the geothermal activity. Every single brine we extracted from the subsurface aquifer was between 20 and 30 degrees Celsius. This is very important as an ideal range of temperature for direct lithium extraction, and it also allows us to save energy and reduce the OPEX. The scoping studies underway and environmental studies underway. The PFS, pre-feasibility study, will commence next year, and again is to produce 20,000 tons per year. Why we had some extended drilling season and why we went almost into winter? Because we had the happy news that when we drilled, we went deeper than when originally expected with the geophysics. The geophysics was right about the brine and the concentration of the brine underground, but it can only mirror to a certain point when there's so much brine and so much readings of low resistivity or high conductivity that we ended up going much deeper, as you can see on the various holes listed at the bottom. The happy news of Francisco Basin, our second largest project, if not the first one, has been going to be competing with Laguna Verde. Our broker has projected 2 to 3 million tons of resources. Fox Davis is our broker. We also have brought on board Canaccord, a well-respected broker as well, to help us get to new investors. Fox Davis has projected almost 2 to 3 million tons of future resource on Laguna Verde, and in Francisco Basin up to 2. And 600,000, like I said, on this just one hole that we did, FBO1. We were expecting a brine aquifer thickness of 100 meters. We went to 204. It was a very well done well with 8 inches cased all the way down with an slotted casing. We at the top of the hole prevent the inflow of fresh water coming down with a seal. And the 34 brine samples that we collected all through the column of 204 meters of the brine gave us a very stable average, very stable readings, all about, most of them about 300, and the average being 305. We're going to be updating this, the market with this resource, JORC estimate, in October. And then again, just as Laguna Verde, we're going to further drill the 3 holes planned from October 2. And the idea again is to move just from Laguna Verde inferred resource into measured and indicated. It's also a scoping study to start and pre-feasibility to start, and also the environmental impact statements are underway. Yamara is our new acquisition. It's a big mining license area, 344 square kilometers. It sits at a lower elevation of the other 2 projects. Again, Francisco Basin and Laguna Verde sit at 4,300 meters. There's no indigenous communities nearby. The indigenous communities are fairly small. They are 2 hours away, 2,000 meters below. In Yamara, it's the same. There's no indigenous communities, even though this is a place that is at 1,000 meters of elevation. The 3 projects are major highways, have close to electricity, substations to be connected, and water in all the basins to be able to, the water needed for the part of the DLE processing. But Yamara is a greenfield project. We just visited the area. We acquired this geophysics that you can see at the bottom from an oil and gas work done some years ago by a governmental agency. The clear magenta colors that you have there are good indications of brine, as again it has low resistivity, high conductivity, plus the evidence of lithium on the surface. Again, it's a very interesting project for us. So we're going to be drilling, doing a quick initial drilling, and from there on, if we, as expected, find lithium in that subsurface brine, and we're going to do a more detailed and more comprehensive drilling on the area. I mentioned briefly my experience with clean energy, and I just mentioned how they're close to our projects and major electricity lines and access in Francisco Basin is only 5 kilometers away from the corner of our existing mining licenses to a substation. There's actually cell phone coverage in Francisco Basin, as well as there's infrastructure in place. Laguna Verde is crossed by international paved highway. The substations are 52 kilometers away. There is no reason, and I've been working already and talking to the industry leaders, that we could sign a PPA or power purchase agreement that will allow us 24/7, 100% renewable energy. The same for Yamara. Actually, there's a solar station very, very close to where we are, and major other energy producing and power lines of high tension, low tension. It's a very well-developed area, Yamara. And Chile itself has become a world leading on renewable energy. I humbly been a little bit part of that with my work in the past. And we are already past 50% of our energy is from renewables. Something that is always important, I briefly mentioned it before, on Laguna Verde and Francisco Basin, and it's the same for Yamara. There's a processed water supply within the borders of our mining licenses. There's some existing bores, and we're working on everything that will assure us the water. As long as the water is born within your property, you have 100% right to use it. You just have to drill and get all the data from it, and then register in the National Registry of Water. Steve, can you tell our audience about the next 12 months catalyst events, please?
Yeah, sure. I think we're going to have a tremendous flow of very interesting news coming in steady bites over the next 12 months. Clearly, we had our first news today of the 1.5 million ton LCE resource at Laguna Verde. This will be increased during the course of the last quarter by additional work. Francisco Basin will have our first maiden resource coming in a few weeks' time. We'll have the scoping study, which will be the first economic evaluation of the Laguna Verde project towards the end of the year. That'll be followed by Francisco Basin. And clearly all this work is geared up to demonstrating the size of the resource at both Laguna Verde, Francisco Basin, and indicating we've got a third exciting potential at Yamara. The scoping studies at both Laguna Verde and Francisco Basin will outline the technology to be produced, the capital cost, the operating cost, and the NPV of both of those projects. And it's at that time that we will expect to see a number of industry players taking very serious look at our project. We have deliberately not sought out offtake contracts for our production at this stage. We're probably the only lithium project not to have done so, because we believe that the important thing is to look for the right strategic partner who can come in. Obviously, they want to secure lithium supply, but a partner who can also mobilize the capital for the construction finance off its own balance sheet, but also mobilizing the banks from where they come from. We'll expect to see, clearly there'll be interest from China, there'll be interest from the trading houses. I'm used to working with Japanese companies in the copper industry of Chile, where they not only provide finance, but mobilize finance from Jexim Bank and the commercial banks in Japan. It's the same in Europe. We're seeing the battery manufacturers, the car manufacturers wanting to secure lithium supply. They're now considering going upstream into participation in mining ventures. We've seen Elon Musk of Tesla wondering whether he should buy a lithium mine. We've seen BMW invest in the Lilac technology and take a participation in lake resources in Argentina. We can only see that increasing in the future. So we're going to take our time, make sure we can maximize the resource, demonstrate the NPV of the project, and then we'll be starting to talk to strategic investors that can assist us into the next stage, going into construction and production. We will be, as Aldo said, buying pilot plant facilities from Sunresin and doing on-site testing in Chile of our brines from initially Laguna Verde, Francisco Basin, and hopefully Yamara. And we'll see at what size that we'll move into a demonstration plant before we move into the full construction. So certainly over the course of the next 6 months, as we go through scoping studies, pre-feasibility studies, lots and lots of interesting news will be coming out on CleanTech Lithium. Aldo?
Yeah, thank you, Steve. We're summarizing these last 2 slides and closing the presentation, and then we'll open it up for questions. The current market gap, we've seen an increase over the last 90 days. We've have a shares in issue of a little bit above 79 million shares. The broker, Fox Davis, and now Canaccord in a few weeks will also produce a report on us. They have targeted above £1 since we did the IPO in March. So before March of next year, 6 months from now, they say we could target a little bit above £1. Myself and Jason Baverstock, the 2 co-founders, hold 24% of the stock, and all the board has invested and bought stock at the IPO level and pre-IPO level, and we also have a very big funds. The amount of shares being traded per day have been growing, adding some liquidity to the stock, and we're very pleased what is happening in the market, and what the news that just Steve mentioned and the inflow of news will impact the future of the company. Again, we're working, this is the last slide, to de-risk this project, adding updated resources, extended work on the field with environmental studies, scoping studies, PFS studies, and we're targeting to be producing at the end of 2024, 2025. We've talked about our lowest environmental impact, the reinjection of spent brine, the use of renewable energy. We've been ahead of the curve as we started earlier than other companies with 2017, 2018, first testing and starting the DLE work. We produced a battery-grade lithium supply. Again, all the infrastructure, water security, the supportive government of mining in Chile, and that has been reinforced with the recent vote to reject the proposed constitution that was proposed in Chile, and there's a center-left all the way to the center-right alliance to write a constitution that fits all the country, and part of that is protecting the business that we have and has kept the country of being every day more developed, and that's the mining industry. Again, there's no indigenous communities or unique flora and fauna to disturb. These places are more like Mars, and NASA has attested to that, sending some of the robots that we have been sending into space to be tested in this place. With this, I'll turn the presentation off and be ready for questions.
Aldo, Steve,
So,
if I
yeah,
may just jump back in there, thank you very much indeed for your
yeah,
presentation this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions just by using the Q&A tab that's situated on the top right-hand corner of your screen. But just while the company takes a few moments to review those questions that were submitted already, I would like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard. Aldo, Steve, as usual, you have received a significant number of questions that were both pre-submitted
yeah.
as well as those
Very,
that were
very,
submitted throughout today's presentation itself. So firstly,
yeah,
thank
yeah,
you to all of those on the call for taking the time to submit their questions. And Aldo, if I could please just hand back to you to go through that Q&A tab, and where appropriate to do so,
yeah,
if you could please just
yeah,
read
yeah,
out the questions and give your response, and then I'll pick up from you at the end.
yeah.
Thank you.
I'll start from the bottom. When do you expect Canaccord to initiate its research report? They're going to be publishing, they said, next month. They've already been working, and we have been working with them, with their various offices, in particular the office in Beijing, their office in Perth, and in Sydney, and of course in London, where we have met with them and have shared information. Of course, Canada. They have a global reach, and like I said, they will initiate. They published their research report in October. Somebody's asking, thanks for the questions. Production is estimated at 20,000 tons per year. What are the restrictions to expand this, apart from capital? Taking into account the resource should be able to support at least double this output. Yeah, we projected 20,000 tons per year initial target, given the resources we have and the initial engineering work we've done. For both properties, 20,000 for Laguna Verde per year and 20,000 tons per year on Francisco Basin. We'll see once the scoping study is published, where can we expand that, how much we can expand that. There's no restriction other than capital, as the person here is rightly saying. And as because the direct lithium extraction plants we're planning to install are modular, so we just add more components to it, and there's no restriction on electricity or water. When can we expect a result from the first drill hole at Yamará? We'll be drilling somewhere in November. We can inform the market with the initial information, but normally with all the lab testing and all the QA, quality assessment and quality control processes, it will take more than that to have really more comprehensive reports. It will be into next year, but initial information will happen this year. What's our views on today's share price down, and 99% given the news on resource upgrade? I don't know if Steve, you want to touch on this. I've seen this as kind of common after you produce information.
This is very, very usual. We've seen a run up in our share price over the course of the last week or two. We listed at 30p. We went rapidly until yesterday over 60p. Clearly, people have been anticipating a resource update. We've given it today. There has been a significant increase. Maybe some people expected it to be very much greater than that. Now, clearly, we still have lots of room to increase it into the future, but it's also very common for people to take some profit off the table after a very fast run-up.
Yes, well, thank you, Steve. Another question is, how does the climate weather affect the operations of the company? Again, Chile has a long tradition of mining. We sit in two of the properties at 4,300. That's no problem for that elevation, other than the usual protocols for dealing with higher altitude. Actually, Coyahuasi, the mine that from an idea went into development that Steve did, operates at a higher elevation. Of course, the direct lithium extraction is a closed loop from the extraction and into the plant and then back into the subsurface aquifer, and we have a lot less climate weather influence. That's not the case for evaporation ponds, who are sit on the open, and when there's unseasonal rain, they cause trouble, and you've seen sometimes fluctuate actually the production and the stock of SQM and Albemarle sit in the Salar de Atacama with open to the air evaporation ponds when that happens. We already answered the question, when do you anticipate Canaccord to initiate their coverage? They're already working. We're working with some of their investors and connections and offices. And again, that will happen in later in October. They'll release a note and we'll continue to work with them. Are the Chilean government supportive of the work the company is doing is another question, and how the licenses work. When do, like, for example, when do the licenses run out, and do you have the license to conduct direct lithium extraction? That's all the questions of this question are very good. The exploration mining licenses that we originally acquired, they have an expiration of 2 to 4 years. You can renew them, and we've used them, and we've explored, and we're moving all our licenses into indefinite licenses, who are exploitation licenses. As long as you pay the patents, you can have them as for the rest of the mine and the mining of the land. We have one of the best, if not the best, land management team of the country, with a contract with an office that runs the mining licenses of Codelco, BHP, Anglo American, SQM, etc., and also in-house capacities to be able to do that. We don't need a special license to conduct direct lithium extraction. Actually, you inform the government that you're going to be drilling. By law, you're allowed to drill, and if you meet all the requirements, and we certainly do. And part of those initial processing, other than drilling, it's the metallurgical process, and that's you don't need a special permit. You inform the authority. We've been doing that in the case of DLE. Another question is, does the company have any obvious risk, and if the timelines according to plan go well, what's the ambition is there for value companies, say 24 months? So we are in September 2022. In September 2024, we have finished the pre-feasibility study. We'll be on way to start constructing of the company, of the two plants in Francisco Basin and Laguna Verde, and of course, all the things have to fall in place, like all the permitting, all the environmental study have to be finished and approved. And those are the things we'll invest time and efforts to be able to reach that plan in 24 months. Somebody's asking, will we get an upgrade on Francisco Basin in the next 2 weeks? In the next month. Hopefully we'll do it in 2 weeks, but I like to under-promise and over-deliver. In October, we'll have the upgrade on Francisco Basin. What does the company believe is the best option regarding offtake? Joint ventures to maximize shareholder value? I think, Steve, you already answered that question. I don't know if you want to reiterate what you said.
No, I think, no, it's our job over the next 6 months to demonstrate the value of the project, and then we'll be talking to a wide range of potential strategic partners and taking a decision on which we believe is the best to offer good value to our shareholders into the future.
Yeah, there's another question. What is the current cash position of the company? We're going to be releasing our interims. We're just finishing them in the next few days. But our last public cash position was £4.6 million a couple of months ago. Yeah. Another question is, any institutional investor coming aboard, and how do you anticipate a dual listing, like in Australia, where they have a great appetite for lithium plays? Yeah, we have institutional investors both in Australia, in the UK, and abroad. Regal Funds from Australia is actually the largest institutional investor. We're planning a trip to Australia in the next upcoming weeks, and we talked, and we'll have to analyze at the board level when and how we could bring a dual listing with Australia. And we also see, as the person is asking the question, that it's a market with a great appetite for lithium plays. When will be commissioning 2 pilot plants, one for Laguna Verde and one from Francisco Basin? We're doing that work right now. We expect to have a small unit of a pilot plant in the next 6 weeks arriving to Chile. Another question, following the test results out of Canada that indicate direct lithium extraction wasn't efficient on a wider scale, how do you think this will affect the technical aspects of CleanTech lithium? I don't see a connection. We've been all the way from producing our own resin, for producing 1 kilo battery, to signing up with the largest plant manufacturer and the largest resin manufacturer of the world. Sun Resin has grown up from being a 2.2 billion company to a 4.2 billion company, publicly listed, and we're just very sure of what we're doing and the steps to be able to produce direct lithium extraction. Again, Livent in Argentina has been producing with direct lithium extraction with a resin lithium since 1998 and has a production of 2023. Since 1998, they've been producing lithium. Are you anticipating pilot production in 2023? Yes, we'll be anticipating production. We'll yet have to inform the market what will be the quantities on both places. And again, that will be more than production. It will be more for working with potential buyers and off-takers and JV as we produce battery-grade lithium. How many serious approaches have you had over the past 12 months, and when do you anticipate doing a deal, the JV and off-take? Do you want to answer that again, Steve? This question keeps coming up.
Yeah. No. Clearly, we've been a project that was not really known until we listed it in March. But even until that time, there have been a couple of companies that have recognized the potential of the project and have engaged in early stage discussions. We have decided not to advance those until such time as we have a well understood and established measured and indicated resource on both our Laguna Verde, Francisco Basin projects, completed the scoping studies, and have the first estimate of NPV of the projects. And it's only at that stage do we consider it worthwhile to seriously engage with potential strategic partners.
Okay, as I started answer the questions from the bottom up, I hope I have not loose on the window that I see the question. So I'll start now from the top. We'll scale up to 40K to beyond 6K be the complete through a single or several DLE plants. I don't know how up will scale. Again, the PE feasibility will answer that more clearly. The scoping study will give an indication. But again, it's a modular way. It's not several DLE plants. It's a modular way. This is a very good question. The next one, I like it, is does the re-injection of the water back into the aquifer dilute the lithium concentration over time? As we live in semi-immature salars with clay bands and with not just one big subsurface aquifer, we have all the geological and hydrological initial information that we need to further expand, that we extract in one point, that's Point Francisco Basin. We're going to be re-injecting 6 to 8 kilometers away, and we know that eventually, let's say we extract that 20 liters per second. Over time, that means that that inflow of brine without lithium will go all the way back to the place where we are extracting, and we'll be able to set up a higher liters per second extraction. But at the same time, we'll see the effects of the extracting the lithium, and if all the way from the trip of this, the voyage of this spent brine over to the extraction point had collected the lithium enough to not dilute what we're extracting. All our indication is yes. There's a very interesting theoretical papers produced by Alex Grant from Jade Cove analysis. You can find it on the web. So the real answer is it shouldn't dilute, but it should over time make a more speedy or faster way of extracting lithium. What is the minimum grade of lithium that you expect the process to work effectively? Sun Resin is working with very low lithium rates, 80 parts per million or 80 milligrams per liter. we would like, we're now above 200 in Laguna Verde, and we know that we have the effects of some fresh water diluting some of the samples we collected, again with the reconditioning of the holes and the creating some seals on the subsurface, on the initial part of the subsurface aquifers that has fresh water. We'll be able to raise that, but we're confident on that grade. And you actually compare with the lithium extraction in plants in Argentina, projects in Argentina, they're lower than us, 180, 160. And Francisco Basin is 305. But again, we could go with sun resin and our technology as low as 80. It's just a matter of the economics of all that. How does your brine, another question, composition compare to that being currently processed by sun resin? Okay, that's a good question. Again, they go from 80 parts per million. The project, they released an MOU in North America, in Utah, has a higher grade. We're not completely, don't know the higher grade, but the Argentinian salar, where they're starting, it's a little bit above 200 parts per million. So it compares similar to us. And the resin, you just need more stages to come to that 90 to 95 recovery rate at the DLE resin part. You just need to keep adding stages. Actually, some resin processes have even farther on the processing, even more lithium recovery of the brine that is being processed and before being re-injected. Another question is, the only thing that kept me out of investing since the IPO is the government in Chile. How do you see the political stability of the country proceeding? That's a very good question. The majority of the country, without a mandatory vote, that was the case in the latest referendum, majority of the country said that we wanted a new constitution, close to 80%. But that same big number, and now with a mandatory vote just last week, said over 61% that we don't want the constitution that was drafted by this group of independents and people who didn't have many of the qualifications of a constitutional and law studies. We did it, it was set up with the best intentions, but now, again, there's a center left all the way to the center right who represents all these 61%, and the remaining political parties are also adhering to this. And we've come to the conclusion that we have to set up ground rules of the major constitutional work we've done over the years. Like, again, Chile is a very respected country. There's also an agreement that the people elected to draft the constitution should have experts supporting them. And the whole sentiment is to come to a more center, a more reasonable constitution that will last for many years instead of being just to one political or political group. So we're going to be avoiding extremes, the center left and the extreme left and the extreme right, and come together as we've always done. And we're going to keep the voluntary vote from all elections from now. The 85% of the people voted. We're very proud of our voting system, and nobody disputes anything, and in just a few hours the results are known. What protection does the company have in case of an attempted takeover? Well, the main protection is that we have the majority of the stock with institutional funds, and ourselves, myself and Jason Baber's stock, and a close group of investors control the company. What will the construction cost be? We have Sun Resin, who deployed this 25,000 tons facility from Chile to Argentina. It's talking of some $700 million plant once they go to the 73,000 tons per year. We have quotes from them from various types of plants that we have in the admission documents back in March. 10,000 tons per year will mean $200 million. So, and then to go to 20,000 tons per year, it will mean $400 million. If we write a number, it's one of the questions please send to us, a number per ton. It's 40. What's it here is you have to divide. No, it's not the answer here. Per ton, the cost. So it's $400 million divided by 20,000 tons per year will come to a number of the cost of producing a plant per ton. What other questions do we have? We are exploring other metals also as part of reducing the global dependence on lithium. Global companies are doing research and development on a variety of metals. No, we haven't. We don't foresee this in the near future, but we have very solid establishment here in Chile, and we might, but no, not again. Will we need to raise again? When will be running out of cash without another raise? I don't know, Steve, you want to mention this? The need to raise or not?
We have the finance already in place, which we raised at the IPO and pre-IPO to execute our current work programs. Now, clearly, we've had a number of institutions that are saying, "No, why don't you go faster?" When we did the IPO, we initially went for 6 million pounds. We were getting interest levels of 10, 11 million pounds until Russia invaded the Ukraine, but we still got away with 5.6 million. Now, clearly, if we want to accelerate our drilling programs in Laguna Verde, Francisco Basin, if we find we have lithium at Yamara and want to execute a rapid drilling program there, we will need additional funds. So we have the funds to complete the work we'd planned at Laguna Verde, Francisco Basin, and complete the pre-feasibility study. If we want to accelerate that work, then yes, we will consider at an appropriate time additional funds. But we'll take a look at that in the course of the next few months.
Okay, here's one of the questions that I remember have come earlier and I was posed again. Thank you. And it's one question with like 3 questions. What are the financial terms of the Sunresin relationship? How long will it continue for? And do they have any longer lasting terms which could be triggered to renew or expand the relationship? One of the things that made us decide for Sunresin is that they don't have a black box technology or a request for equity in exchange or royalties or anything. They're just like a normal mining provider. They sell you the resin, they'll sell you the pilot plant, they'll sell you the plant itself. I gotta remind the people listening that we turned down an equity offer or an equity request by Lilac before they signed their agreement with the Lake Resources to take 10% of our equity in exchange of they financing the pilot plant and the PFS. And we didn't go with them regardless of all their respect for their technology. And we work with them since 2018 with samples and engineering work because we were locked in with that percentage and we couldn't do the IPO as they were needed to test all this technology for a long period, 24 months. So we choose to go with somebody who didn't take equity, that we could work over time, but we will not be locked. So we're very, very happy with that. Part of the same question is, when can we expect revenues to emerge? Again, late 2024, 25. And again, to Steve, what financial demands will be there before then accepting that there's cash in the balance sheet?
Well, clearly, there is no funding taking us through this stage of exploration and feasibility. The big financial demands will be for the construction. Aldo's already talked about $20,000 a ton, so maybe you're looking at $400 million for a plant at Laguna Verde, similar at Francisco Basin, which is quite a lot. That's why we are open to taking in a strategic partner that can provide a great deal of assistance with that funding, not only on its own balance sheet, but to assist in mobilizing the debt financing package, which we would need to put in place. And that's where the main financing is going to be, at the construction financing stage.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Questions that were submitted before and now are being resubmitted. Do individuals or institutions have privilege on company revenues? Have solution partners such as Alpha Lithium, KMX, Sunrise been given a share of the revenue? And the answer is no. It's not actually Alpha Lithium, it's Beyond Lithium. No, we don't have any agreements, and there's not individuals or institutions that have privilege or company revenues. Again, that will come in time with if we set up with off-takers and joint ventures, but not right now. And we're very proud of that. We're one of the few public listed companies without those things, without those privilege or off-take agreements. It's too early to ask this question, said one of the questions here on the Q&As. But have you set a policy on how the profit will be used? We don't have that, Steve. That's an early question, but I don't know if you can answer it.
No, it's far too early. No, clearly, when we become a profitable company, the board will take decisions at that time. How much of that will get reinvested into other productive assets and investments? How much will be returned as dividends to shareholders? Far too early to answer that.
Yeah. Another question is, does the result of a constitutional referendum affect the legal structure and workflow process of the mining site? No, there's nothing that before the referendum, both the current government and also the people on both sides approve or reject the referendum, agreed on keeping mining and mining structure and mining law to not affect investments. So and now the remaining part of the question, what are the positive and negative effects? It's only positive effects. We know the need for environmental, more sustainable way of mining, and we are there. But all the positive is that we will see, if we see new legislation, it will be again more pro-business and more conservative, more to the center legislation. A question about licenses. Could the company please clarify the ownership of the exploration licenses for Francisco Basin and Laguna Verde? Are these licenses wholly owned by the company, and what extent do they allow the company to operate to a production capacity with expected tie-up with an off-taker? Yeah, we wholly own the licenses in both Francisco Basin and Laguna Verde and Yamará. In Laguna Verde, part of the licenses we maintain and we explore and everything because they're part of an option agreement. Again, if we click year per year all the agreements of the option agreement, we will wholly own them. Option agreements are much better than like if you compare it to a house or an apartment, a lease to own. From the day you sign the option agreement, the people who you sign with, they cannot access the property. It's yours. You can explore, you can exploit, you can do everything without asking any permit or anything. And again, as you comply with all the things you agreed on the option agreement, you register them in the mining registry, and then it becomes yours 100%. Are there other salars? Another question. Are there other salars in Chile that will be looking in the future beyond the current three? Yes, of course, we will. We just, because of our credentials, our work, we've been always from day one being a company that does initial sampling, does geophysics, does initial drilling, set up all the studies to move the projects into production. We don't like to just make announcements of news or data collected by someone else. We'd like to do everything from our own work. Steve, why do you believe the company is so undervalued compared to its peers at this stage? What do you think is that?
I think if you compare us to probably the most similar company is Lake Resources in Argentina. Lake have got a resource of 4 million tons of lithium carbonate equivalent. We've declared 1.5. We'll have Francisco Basin, and we've got exploration programs. And our brokers and analysts expect us to get into a similar size of resource as Lake Resources. We own our resources 100%. Lake only own 80% of their resource. They've given 20% of the company away to Lilac that provide their technology. And if you compare the market capitalization, we are only at $50 million today for potentially a 4 million ton project. Lake Resources are over $1 billion market capitalization for an equivalent sum of 4 million tons of resources. So that gives you an idea of the tremendous scope for value change over the course of the next period as we issue more and more results on the resources and the technology into the market.
Thank you, Steve. The last question, we'll see if some more come. The trial work produced 1 kilo of lithium from a 2,000 liter sample. This equates to a minimum grade of 500 milligrams per liter. How was such a high grade achieved? We tested just the resin absorption, and we had a good result. The resin worked better than any other resin we've tested before, and from there on, it was forced evaporation. It didn't all the other components of the flow, like reverse osmosis and every other things that we could have lost. Some of the lithium was not used, so that's how we produce a high grade. We constantly produce again with direct lithium extraction a very high recovery of the initial lithium in the brine, and from there on we went with forced evaporation and the traditional way of enriching lithium with sodium carbonate to produce battery grade lithium carbonate. We have all the questions, and I don't know if anything else. We're very pleased by the response. By the questions were all important. And I don't know if you have, Steve, any closing remarks.
Aldo, Steve, if I may just jump back in there. Go on, sir. After you.
Yeah, this is another question. What are the plans, if any, to assist market cap like Lake Resources regarding listing on other markets or dual listing? Steve, with that, I think we can close.
Yeah, no, clearly
what are the plans?
We listed on AIM to get our initial financing of our program. Since then, we have been listed on Frankfurt, and we are getting requests from institutions in Australia that there would be far more interest in the company if we were dual listed in Australia. We've had a number of discussions with investment funds in the United States who are also interested in the company, but they would only invest if we are listed in the US on the OTC market as well. So we are working with our brokers to look at what is the best coverage globally we should have in terms of our alternative listings to give maximum opportunity for shareholders to invest in the company.
Steve, that's great. And Aldo as well. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to address all those questions that came in from investors today. And of course, immediately after the presentation has ended, we'll give you back all of the questions submitted today for your review to then add any additional responses where it's appropriate to do so. Aldo, perhaps before redirecting those on the call to provide you with their feedback, which I know is particularly important to yourself and the company, if I could please just ask you for a few closing comments to wrap up with, that'd be great.
Yeah, today is a very important day for us. Our updated York numbers and figures were released. We're very pleased with the upgraded more than 22% global resource, but even more happy about the more than 800,000 tons that are inferred and measured and indicated. and that gives us a glimpse of a production of 2,000 tons per year, ratified how many years we'll go with that with the scoping study and then the pre-feasibility study, along with everything else we've been doing and the rise of the stock over the last month and a half or so. And the fundamentals of the business are there. Chile is a good jurisdiction, a serious country, and has been always a great mining place. Steve can attest to that, and myself and my whole family. And there's the headquarters of mining in the world, of the likes of Busal and other companies are here. The renewable energy, it's plenty, and more and more is being developed that, and we have a great infrastructure in place. The team in Chile and in the UK and Jersey is an exceptional team, and it's growing with people and capacities on a day-per-day basis, and people from other parts of the world, from Canada, are also coming and helping us on a regular basis. The resources and other fundamentals of the business are there, and it will only grow as we invest the investors' money into the projects. And then direct lithium extraction with our own work and the work of our partner Sunresin. It's and the work that Beyond Lithium did for us before. It will advance us to a proven technology and a proven work, and with all the green credentials. So we'll expect this undervalued stock to keep on rising. We're doing a lot of PR and marketing efforts, and with extensive travel and work just as today. So presenting the company to people, current investors and new people, so new investors. So very thankful, and wish everyone a good day.
Aldo, that's great. And Steve as well, thank you once again for taking the time to update investors today. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as you'll now be automatically redirected for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of CleanTech Lithium PLC, we would like to thank you for attending today's presentation. That now concludes today's session, so good afternoon to you all.